forged on the gridiron in September. Perfected in the magic of March. For the fans who love the crunch of the pads, prefer a dunk, and expect nothing but the best. It's Bigger Ten. Here's Steve Dace.
Indeed, it is a special week here on Bigger Ten. My name is Steve Dace, alongside my co-host, Aaron McIntyre. And I don't know where all of you that are watching us this week, where you live, but got up this morning, headed to the gym. It was 60 degrees outside. Rolled the windows down. It felt like fall. Turn the radio on. Breaking news, Aaron. Big Ten unveils 2020 college football schedule, and it just felt like, oh, yeah, like a harmonic convergence, the chill of an early fall there, George Strait, a little preview of the majesty of autumn. About the only thing missing was some pumpkin spice, brother.
How early were you up this morning?
I'm usually up about 6:30 every single morning.
Did you look out the window this morning?
I did not. Was there frost?
There was a double rainbow across the sky. Oh my God. I knew something was in the air today.
It's a double rainbow. Oh my God. Yes.
I'm dead serious. There was a double rainbow outside.
There really was one. You're not trolling me. There really was a double rainbow.
There was a double rainbow across the sky, and I just stared at it on my way into work. It was so beautiful. It's just a double rainbow across the sky. I get into work. What do I see on Twitter? Big Ten schedule's coming out.
So I'm wondering, what's this week's episode going to be about? Well, you guessed it. Our top five. We begin our Big Five on Bigger Ten with our top five takeaways from the official now 2020 Big Ten football conference-only schedule. Let's begin with point one. The season's going to start on time. They are starting practice in Illinois and Ohio State tomorrow, because their first game is against each other on Thursday, September the 3rd. The rest of the conference begins football practice, as they were going to until we had a coronavirus, the first Friday in August, to get ready for Labor Day weekend, when Big Ten football will get underway. Commissioner Kevin Warren saying today that they wanted to start as soon as on time as they could, so they could stretch things out as long as they could to give themselves as much flexibility in the schedule as possible. So if you're keeping score right now, Aaron, the Southeastern Conference is going to start at the end of September. Mm-hmm. The Big 12, I believe, is going to also end up starting that first Labor Day weekend. I think that's when they're all going to play their non-conference games as kind of a warm-up, and then they wait for 2 weeks, and the conference schedule starts September the 19th in the Big 12. The ACC is going to start September 12th. We don't know yet about the Pac-12. I think they're supposed to start the 19th, but they're saying that some of those games may get pushed back. They're not sure. It is the Pac-12, after all. And then a lot of these group of five leagues are getting ready to start Labor Day weekend as well. So your thoughts on the Big Ten when it's planning on starting, and this sort of staggered ramp up to the college football season we're looking at?
So there are a few things here. One, selfishly, I want football as soon as possible. I mean, I listened on satellite radio last season to the Week 0 games, the FCS games. I think it was Monmouth was one of the... I don't even know if it was Monmouth, but I listened to some of the FCS games because you know what? It's college football. Yeah. And when you're without college football for 8-9 months out of the year, you want as much as you can take. So selfishly, in that, there still might be some August 29th games if the FCS can get them in, or maybe some of the group of five conferences. We don't know exactly what their full schedules are yet. There may be some of those games still coming out. But selfishly, I want the season to start as soon as possible every single year. Point number two. There is a lot of merit. If this is all concerns about the virus and you're heading into a new viral season, flu and pneumonia season, what have you, starts in late fall and carries on through the spring, you would think that you'd actually want to start earlier in order to avoid as much as that as possible when you've got these teams traveling across the country. So part of you says, you want to get this thing on the road, the show on the road as soon as possible. The other part of this is as well, these teams didn't get their spring conditioning. You have no idea in some cases how these guys are going to come back. I mean, a lot of teams have been working out, obviously.
Yeah, since June.
Since June. But at the same time, You don't know exactly if you are in football shape until you start crunching those pads. And you look at all the time that's already gone by that you would have normally at least taken steps to getting into football shape. And then you start truncating that schedule before that first game. Okay, you've already got concerns about having to hold guys out because of this virus. And if you start truncating that schedule and you're not in good enough shape, or at least not in adequate shape to start hitting each other and start really straining, you don't want to be adding soft tissue and things like that. Again, you can't avoid everything. I totally get that, but I do, as far as just the health perspective, it seems like there might be some benefit to at least giving yourself another week or two to get in football shape and to get things at least get some semblance of togetherness and just get the season on the road. Giving yourself, bottom line is giving yourself as much time as possible before the start of the season. I can kind of understand that.
Well, but if the Big Ten right now, if they can start on time, if they're the only Power 5 league playing meaningful games, because if the Big 12, as I suspect, plays, it's doing a 9+1 model. So if they play their non-conference games that opening weekend, it's going to be armpit state, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, they're all lining up glorified scrimmages. Can you imagine? I mean, ratings for Big Ten football games are off the chain anyway, but if that's the only meaningful matchup of good on good in the country, ratings for those Big Ten games are going to be lit.
Yeah,
absolutely. All right, point 2. What the Big Ten decided to do is everybody stayed with their previous 9 conference games. Just some of the order was shuffled. Even the locations of the games were shuffled. For example, Michigan was originally supposed to play at Michigan State, but it will host Michigan State now for 2 years in a row to kind of correct what's been a long-standing complaint that when the divisions were changed to east to west for almost as long as I can remember, Michigan and Ohio State, or Michigan's alternated Ohio State and Michigan State at home and a road every other way or every other year. And then the last 10 years, several years, they've gotten either both at home and both away. So it appears the Big Ten has corrected what's a long-standing complaint there from Michigan fans. And then after they did that, everybody was just given an and one. So here's the and ones for every team. All right. Wisconsin was given Rutgers, because apparently somebody in the Big Ten office is a massive Badger fan. Iowa was given Maryland, Penn State, Illinois. Michigan will close the season now against Northwestern, as it's scheduled anyway. Ohio State was given Purdue, and that game will be in West Lafayette. Remember the last time Ohio State went there. Nebraska was given Michigan State, and then Minnesota was given Indiana. So those are the and one games that each team was given as an extra cross-divisional opponent to get to that 10th game. Your thoughts on that slate of opponents added to the schedule, Aaron?
It's never going to be perfect in the season. The scheduling is never perfect anyway. It's up right up there. I have to imagine with should Pete Rose be in the Hall of Fame talking about Big Ten scheduling in terms of what do we talk about when there's nothing else to talk about during a typical off season. So with that aside, I would say though, aside really from Ohio State and Wisconsin, which I think Purdue and Rutgers should maybe be playing with each other, which they might already. It's just so convoluted to try to keep all of this.
Yes, Purdue
together.
and Rutgers are playing each other.
Purdue and Rutgers are already playing with each other. What do you do? Wisconsin and Ohio State, they should have been playing each other. Wisconsin's schedule is laughable, and we'll get to that later. I don't want to step on that. Other than that, though, if you're a Nebraska fan, you don't have to go to Ohio State, but you still probably have a little bit of a challenge, at least in Michigan State. Those Nebraska-Michigan State games have been, they've been tight recently. Not exactly pretty, but tight. But you've got at least some sort of a challenge. Minnesota, Indiana. Now, that should be an actually interesting game as well. So I like most of these matchups. I would say the only problem I have is Wisconsin and Ohio State should probably be playing each other.
Point number 3 from the official unveiling of the 2020 Big Ten schedule is the game. It's lost its luster unless you're an Ohio State fan, because it hasn't been much of a rivalry for going on 2 decades now. But in terms of its pageantry and the brands involved, it is still the titular game of the Big Ten football season. Michigan, Ohio State, for the first time since 1933, It will not be played in November for the first time since 1942. It will not end the Big Ten Conference season for both teams. There's been a couple times that Michigan's gone and played a game at Hawaii, but this has ended the conference schedule for both teams since 1942. Those streaks, as it stands right now, are going to come to an end. However, keep in mind, the game could end up needing to be pushed back, and you have those bye weeks later in the year, including Thanksgiving weekend, which used to be the rivalry weekend. So it could still conceivably get pushed back. In fact, I'm gonna make a prediction I didn't tell you in advance I was going to make. If indeed we see a similar epidemiological curve to SARS-2 that we saw to SARS-1, which is by the end of August, heading into Labor Day weekend, the virus just burnt itself out in summer and disappeared. Let's say we were to get lucky, fortunate, Providence, with something like that. Or we get to the middle of October and it looks like we've got things pretty under control where this is concerned. Right. Do not be shocked if the networks, particularly ABC we're talking about here, or I mean Fox, I'm sorry. If Fox comes to the Big Ten and says, hey, virus looks like it's under control, we want to move the game back to Thanksgiving weekend, especially because there's now nothing right now, unless there's going to be makeup games on the docket for that week right now. We want to go ahead and push it back. Don't be shocked if that conversation is had, if things are looking better epidemiologically in the middle of October when the game is scheduled, or late October when the game is scheduled to be played right now. Don't be shocked if that happens later on, Aaron.
Yeah, and that's that's the type of flexibility, positive flexibility that they should have. Why does flexibility have to work only if something bad happens? Why can't flexibility also work to actually make something good happen, like moving the game back to its original spot and at least for the networks, making a lot of money because they're going to be the only show on television probably that day. So here's, the Saturday after Thanksgiving. Here's the thing with the game, though. It seemed like a really I don't know about you. It seemed like a really random
Like, what's
week.
special about October 24th?
Yeah,
right?
exactly. What's up with that? And then I looked at I cross-referenced with the rest of the schedule. Of course, SEC doesn't have their schedule out. And I see on the docket that week, to my eye, just over a cursory glance, the only other national interest game, or a game that even has the potential of national interest, is Bedlam. And maybe Iowa and Penn State, depending on how both those teams' seasons go up to that point. Otherwise, it looks like the game is probably going to be the only game of national import on that weekend. And so I think that's probably the reason they squeezed it in there, but it is kind of random. I mean, there's 3-4 more weeks left in the season. It's just smack dab in the middle of the season. It seemed kind of random for me, but I think it's probably because of TV.
Let's get to some of the big winners and big losers from the schedule reboot here. I'm going to start with my two big winners. I think Wisconsin and Ohio State, who are the respective favorites in their divisions, they're tiptoeing between the raindrops right now. They've got friends over there in the Big Ten office. The Ohio State schedule, when you run that down, they're starting off with Illinois, Rutgers, and Purdue, and Indiana. And I think, Illinois was okay last year. Purdue is as beat up as any team as I can recall. Indiana, of course, was pretty good last year, but Ohio State 50-burgered them in their own crib. And then you get a bye. And then you get Nebraska. And then you get Michigan State. Show me a game right there where they're not minimum 17 to 21 point favorites before they play Michigan. I don't see it. I don't see it at all. And then after Michigan, they get Maryland, so no look ahead there. And then they get Penn State, and then another bye before they play Iowa. So that is an awfully favorable schedule for, let's face it, a team that doesn't need any favor right now. And then you look at Wisconsin, that was given Rutgers as its extra game. It doesn't have to play Penn State and Ohio State out of the East, and it does play Michigan, but not until the end of the season. You're the Big Ten West guy here as the Iowa fan. You got to be just cursing the darkness right now. It's hard enough dethroning Wisconsin in the West without giving them a favorable draw of cross-divisional opponents, Aaron, at the exact same time.
Yeah, and as I was saying earlier, I mean, this is an every season talking point. That's legit in my estimation. I mean, the scheduling always seems random. I know they announce them years in advance. The scheduling always seems like it's just there's no criteria, there's no formula whatsoever. It just seems like it's the whims of the Big Ten front office. So every season, it seems like a Big Ten West team just has a cakewalk. And of course, this year of all years, when Wisconsin looks down, maybe, who's going to replace that running back? We talked about that ad nauseum, and they get Rutgers as their and one. Yeah, so that checks out. That's super cool. As far as losers go, I don't know how you can not. I mean, Illinois had a tough schedule to begin with. Look at those first 4 games there. Mm-hmm. You open up against Ohio State. That's going to be a bloodbath. Sorry. Nebraska's probably going to be starting 1-0, and they're going to be going into your crib looking to go 2-0. I think maybe for the first time in Scott Frost's career at Nebraska, coaching career at Nebraska, if memory serves correctly. So they're going to be fired up. And then Indiana, you're probably going to lose there. And then Purdue, who knows what that team's going to be like, but that's not going to be an easy game to win. Illinois, for a team that's looking to build on some momentum that they got last season, that's a really tough way to start. And then it just doesn't really get a heck of a lot easier after that. So Illinois is probably a loser. And then a winner for me, I think Nebraska. They still have to play Ohio State and Penn State, but the way their schedule shakes out, if they actually can make some progress in those first 2 weeks, I mean, Rutgers and Illinois, they're like, I don't know, maybe a glorified out of conference game, essentially. So you've got some time to tweak some things and then go into the meat of your schedule: Wisconsin, Iowa, Minnesota, with some momentum. So I think Nebraska was maybe a winner as well. I don't disagree with your 2 big winners and losers either.
Back to Wisconsin for a second. They essentially traded Appalachian State, arguably the best team in the group of 5, and Notre Dame for Rutgers. Mm-hmm. So you start thinking about playoffs and rankings. I mean, I've got Wisconsin favored in 8 games, a slight underdog at Michigan in my power ratings, and a toss-up at Iowa in their 10 games. So I don't have Ohio State less than a double-digit favorite in any game. And I think I've got them about a 10 or 11 point favorite against Michigan. I've got them 17 points favored or more in every other game. And that's a team that's like rebuilding almost its entire defense from last year. So that shows you how favorable their schedule is. Go ahead.
Yeah, can I interject one thing? Do you ever buy the notion that it really does not actually benefit Ohio State to have cupcakes because you never get challenged and then you get to the college football playoff?
Well, yeah, some of it is their fault for good reasons. They've become that good of a football program that even a slate loaded with teams exclusive to arguably likely the second best conference in the country seems like it's easy. But the way that the schedule is laid out, there's really no difficult back-to-backs in the entire schedule. The way that it's laid out, I mean, it almost reads like, hey man, what do we got to do to stop Justin Fields from opting out on us? I mean, it is set up for them specifically to be successful, and they don't need any help. My 2 big losers, I think Purdue's a big loser. 6 of its first 7 games are against teams that were in bowl games last year, and you are talking about a team with a new defensive coordinator, bringing back a lot of new faces because a lot of guys were hurt last year, and you're starting off with Michigan, Iowa, and then Ohio State in your first 3 games. Yikes. And those are 3 physical teams. And Purdue is still trying to get more stout on both sides of the line of scrimmage at the exact same time. And then my other loser, I mean, you got to look at Michigan State. Penn State, Michigan, and Ohio State in back-to-back-to-back games. Yikes. I mean, this is Mel Tucker. Welcome to the Big Ten Conference with that slate. So those would be my 2 losers from the new scheduling draw. You have any other thoughts on this one?
Not necessarily, no. It's going to be I'm trying to look for a more interesting word than interesting, but the way that the blender that the schedule was put through and then spit this out, it's going to be fun, maybe a little bit I don't know, jarring to watch sometimes, but it is going to be interesting, no less.
See, I think for a certain cachet of teams, given the way they recruit, I don't think home field advantage or disadvantage is going to be relevant. The crowds are going to be so small.
Yeah.
The intimidation factor for home cooking from the referees, those boom mics, man, are going to pick up everything now.
Yep.
You're going to hear every sideline complaint from every coach in most years when you don't hear anything because of the crowd noise and everything else. So I think that this is, I think there's two factors here. One is, even more so, the team with the more talent has the advantage because there's not a home field situation per se. But then two, on the other hand, you got to be careful, you know from years of watching College Game Day growing up. You get worried, man, when you've got that big-time favorite team and you're going to sleepy Bloomington at 11 a.m. and the stadium's half full. You know what I'm saying? Okay? There's going to be a lot of those areas where if you're a program of the stature at Ohio State or Wisconsin in the other division, and where Penn State and Michigan are trying to go, or Iowa in the other division, you almost can feed off of that negative energy, right? Almost as much as it can be intimidating, it can kind of fire you up at the exact same time. There are going to be a lot of sterile Northwestern-like environments. And I do think, while there won't be much home field advantage, instead I think we have to consider, as we handicap these games this fall, we're dealing with young 18 to 22-year-old men, okay? And without the benefit of a provoked fire or passion, is it always easy at that age to kind of just come up with that on your own, that edge on your own, when you're not getting flipped off everywhere you go in the stadium and the band's not playing, although maybe we'll have bands, who knows. But you know what I'm trying to say? There's going to be a lot of these kinds of sterile environments. So I don't think we're going to have like home field things. Like I think, for example, that it doesn't matter if Purdue plays Ohio State in Columbus or West Lafayette. It could just be on that given day, Ohio State's young DBs are just like, it's not our day, and Rondale Moore gets hot. Like if we see upsets, I think it's going to be like that, rather than home field advantage, ambushes, stuff of that nature.
A couple of thoughts on that. I think what you're describing there are going to be fewer intangibles. Here. Yeah. That's essentially what you're saying. Fewer intangibles, so it's just going to be your overall coaching and ability. Yeah. Essentially.
Yep.
Overall coaching and ability. One thing that I have brought up before, it's still a thing. Traveling is still a thing. I don't know if I imagine they're going to be flying places, but I don't know that for sure. I know there was talk at one point of making sure you're only scheduling day trips essentially.
Right.
Well, that's out the window now. I think that's pretty obvious. I mean, you're not going to go. Iowa's not going to go out to Ohio State the same day, obviously. So travel is still a thing. That's still a disruption to a normal schedule. That's still less sleep that you get. So that's one thing. I don't think that's a huge deal, though. Here's something that's just completely off the wall. In some areas where they might allow student sections or students to come in, which I don't know if that's going to happen. Imagine the students section, except socially distanced around the entire stadium or around the lower bowl of the entire stadium.
Yeah.
That would be kind of interesting to hear, to see how much noise they could actually make from, a 360-degree perspective.
I think Illinois said today they were planning on, to start the year, 12 to 15,000 people in the stands. And I think every school is going to give priority to the students themselves, because students have to be tested to go back on campus and everything else, right? So I think you could see in a lot of these games, especially early on, if things improve with the virus, then you can always just, make more tickets available to the public at that point. But early on, I do think if we have crowds, they're almost all going to be students. And we're going to hear everything they say too. Keep that in mind. I mean, I think we you know what? Keep that in mind.
Yes.
All right, let's get to the fifth thing, the testing protocols. The Big Ten also rolled out today its medical protocols for the upcoming season. It's kind of funny. So like you've had this Pac-12 United group of players with their player activism. The Big Ten had one come out today, and basically everything they asked for, the Big Ten already gave them from a safety standpoint this morning. And then the group claimed that they haven't had a voice in the process. The reality is that Kevin Warren has met with players at every single school here the last few months. So not sure what that means either. But anyway, the testing protocols for the Big Ten, a third party will be administering and monitoring and registering the tests and their results all season long. There will be 2 tests each game week, or each week, starting with camp. Game week, you have to be tested within 3 days of the game. This third party will be administering all the tests, registering them. They will disclose all the results to the rest of the members in the Big Ten. So every team in the Big Ten is going to know what your testing results are on any given week. And again, this is going to be a third party, so it will be uniform. Won't be one standard at Rutgers, which of course we are learning doesn't have many standards. Its players just went out and partied and put the whole damn team in quarantine. Friggin' Rutgers, man, like the cousin Eddie of this league. All right. It's going to be everybody is tested by the same third party, taking it out of the school's hands. So no gamesmanship, none of that nature. Everything will be done by third party all season long and then transparently reported to each team every single week. Aaron, your thoughts on that?
I think this is really, if we're going down this road, which we are already way down, okay, if we're going to go down this road where, you know, if you test positive, you got to sit out for 10 days, which is, I think, on its face, patently ridiculous, but it's where we are, so this is my opinion now that we're here. Now that we are here, this shouldn't be the standard for just the Big Ten. This should be the standard for every single conference.
Yep.
Because, Steve, what's, you know, at Ole... everybody picks on Mississippi. Let's just say North Dogwood Tech.
Hey, it was Ole Miss. It was the school that had the fan walk up to Lane Kiffin with a burner phone and say, "Hey, use this."
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, so I'll pick on them. Let's say Bubba the Love Sponge, a benefactor at Ole Miss, is real chummy with the team doctors.
Yeah.
Who are administrating the COVID tests, and is like, you know what, star player, Bubba Wallace over here, we really need him this week, so I'm just going to ask you, here's a $500 handshake. He's positive. He's negative.
Come on, Doc. Yeah. 0.03 there's better chance of a guy his age dying in a motorcycle accident than a COVID. We need him this Saturday.
So
exactly.
If we're going down this road, it should be the standard everywhere for every team.
I completely agree with that wholeheartedly. All right, so those are our Big 5 takeaways. We'll come back and play our weekly game of Big Ten Would You Rather next.
Bigger 10 is brought to you by Michigan Podcast. If you like what you're hearing today and would like to support us, head on over to Patreon, patreon.com/Michigan Podcast, where if you live somewhere where sports wagering is illegal, you can find Steve's picks for various games for just $5 a month. In the process, you can say thank you for creating this podcast on YouTube or via podcast, wherever you listen. Patreon.com/Michigan Podcast.
All right, let's get to it. It's our weekly game of Big Ten Would You Rather here on Bigger 10. And Aaron, this first one is for you. Would you rather be the 4th wide receiver commit at Michigan for Jim Harbaugh or the main wide receiver commit at Michigan State for Mel Tucker? And I ask this because earlier this week, Andrell Anthony, star high school football player in East Lansing, Michigan, committed to Michigan over Michigan State. He is Michigan's 4th wide receiver commit. The other 3 guys are very highly rated. They're actually much higher rated than Andrell Anthony is. However, even though he was only the 592nd ranked recruit overall, according to 24/7 Sports, he would have been Mel Tucker's highest rated recruit so far at Michigan State. And if you want a stat that's going to just make you cry, if you looked at the combined rankings, Aaron, of Miami of Florida's decommits, their decommit class is currently higher than the commits Michigan State has. So which would you rather be? Would you take your chances as the benchmark recruit for Mel Tucker, or would you rather just be one of the guys for Jim Harbaugh?
I'd say there's probably a better opportunity for upward mobility at Michigan. So I know it's real popular, and I'm not just trying to patronize you here, Steve.
I don't mind being patronized, though. By all means, go for it.
Well, I'm not trying to patronize you, but I'll keep that in mind next time there's an opportunity. It's really sexy every offseason, really, really sexy every offseason to just rip on Michigan and Jim Harbaugh. And as time goes on,
they deserve some of it, man.
As time goes on, it's deserved. Some of it is deserved. Guys, they still have a top flight football program. Okay. Michigan State, D'Antonio, minus the off the field stuff, probably deserves to be in the Hall of Fame.
No
With
doubt.
the on the field or off the field stuff, probably not, but that's a topic for another day, and we've discussed that here before. Having said that, Michigan State without him, Tucker could come in there and just light things on fire and light the world on fire. Chances of that happening, very slim. The chances of me actually being able to catch a ball in front of more than, in front of more eyeballs, more potential opportunities out there at Michigan as the fourth string is probably higher than the main wide receiver at Michigan State, because you at least have an opportunity to work your way into an offense that's maybe going to be noticed by more people. Having said all of that, though, it's college football and scouts are on every single game, but I would rather take my chances as the fourth string at Michigan. I think there's a higher upside there than there is at Michigan State. This next one is for you as I fumble about with my computer here as I try to multitask and say something somewhat intelligent.
And move your squeaky mic.
And move my squeaky mic on air. Would you rather have Iowa's schedule or Michigan State's schedule? So I can put it back up there.
Yeah, put those back up there.
If you would like.
Okay, well, tell me what talent I'm working with. All right.
All things being equal, that's very important. All things being equal, you just have a middle of the pack.
So a competitive Big Ten team.
Yep.
With a win total, I'm expecting to in a 12-game year. I think I have a 6 to 8 win team. Is that what you're saying?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So 6 to 8 win team. Would I rather start with Maryland, Purdue, Minnesota, Nebraska, Northwestern, Illinois, and then the other one you wanted me to look at was Michigan State's.
Yep.
So Maryland and Minnesota, those are in common. Northwestern, that's in common. But then you go to Penn State and Michigan. I kind of think I'd rather have Iowa's schedule, because I think too, we didn't get into it yet this week because I think there's going to be a few more, and I was going to add it on as a topic for next week. But the opt-outs. All right, so we have Micah Parsons opting out, arguably the best player in our conference, or the second best next to Justin Fields. He's opting out. That's a devastating blow for Penn State. Jacob Panishik, Michigan State's best defensive lineman, is opting out. Rashad Bateman, our wide receiver of the year last year, first-round pick likely, he's opting out. Best player in the Minnesota program, opting out. I think with so many distractions this season, I really believe getting off to a good start is key.
Yep.
I really do. I think it's going to be much harder than it has been in years past to rally guys. There's so many reasons to not play, to not give it your all, to mail it in that just haven't existed in past years, right? We don't know. Look at these conferences, just something subtle. Look at these conferences. They're scheduling their championship games on multiple dates. Right now, the SEC championship game is December 12th or the 19th, for example. Guys, December 19th in a given year, it would have been if we had a normal year, that would be the first weekend of bowl season. Do we think there's going to be like any bowls this year?
No, probably not.
Unless we're talking like the New Year's Six in the playoffs, I don't think that we'll have them. I don't. And again, unless we have a dramatic improvement in the virus. But even then, will people immediately hop into the tourism industry and everything else right away? I don't know. I think therefore a lot of the incentives of, hey, hang in there, we can still go to a good bowl game. So now we've got civil unrest, we've got a virus, I'm looking at the NFL draft, and then I don't know that I have a postseason reward awaiting me if I'm not playing for a conference title. I just think it's paramount that you get off to a good start this year, Aaron, because I think it's going to be harder to rally your troops at the end of the season for something meaningful.
So I mentioned Illinois as a loser to this. They're going to get off probably to an 0-2 start. And then instead of the plucky Illinois Fighting Illini who are looking to spring an upset, an upset in Champaign against Wisconsin like they did last year, you get down to an 0-2 start, and they're it's maybe one really bad loss to Ohio State and then a heartbreaker to Nebraska. And then you start looking down at your jersey and like, did that last year really even happen?
Right.
And this year doesn't
You start
really.
looking at your jersey, hey, Io and Kofi Coburn came back. I guess it's hoop season, fellas.
Yeah, you start looking at your jersey. Oh, it is Illinois after all. This season doesn't even matter anyway. There's nothing at the end. There's no light at the end of the tunnel.
Right.
And, if you're any guy on Illinois, if you have any prospect of playing in the NFL whatsoever, your sole focus is going to be on not getting hurt. It's just, I think
we should consider that what you just said, we've had guys not playing bowl games. I think we should consider, based on what you just said, that this year, if I don't want to play the final 3 games and we're not going anywhere, I don't look like I punked out on my team because I can use COVID as my excuse, right? And I think we should consider that in the middle of the season, we're going to start seeing guys opt out of playing once their overall team goals are no longer on the table. I think we should consider that that's going to be happening.
Absolutely.
All right, this one is for you. Would you rather, Aaron, try to make sense of the University of Iowa's report on racial bias within the football program, which I have to tell you, I for those of you that don't know, my full-time career is in politics. I'm used to reading a lot of self-refuting material, okay? But that University of Iowa report on racial bias, man, it takes the cake. I mean, it lays out like this draconian narrative that it's a football program sponsored by the KKK. And then when it offers you specifics, it's like they made this kid drink too much Powerade. I just reading it, I was just struck by how, the self-refuting assertions throughout it. So would you rather try to make sense of that, all right, or would you try to negotiate with the boycotting Pac-12 football players?
This answer is
which of those bridges to nowhere do you prefer? Yeah,
this answer is going to be really brief because going any further would require a different podcast for a completely different show. I would rather negotiate with the boycotting Pac-12 players because you have a better chance of having something resembling a rational argument, about capitalism,
right? And
really the effects of leverage and using your leverage, which they have every right to do. That's another podcast, but you have a better chance, I think, of having a conversation that's closer to resembling rational with those guys than you do with trying to navigate the Hush Blackwell report. So final one is for you. If you're an Iowa fan, would you rather have football season or basketball season?
This coming year, I'd rather have basketball season. I mean, I think this is the clear favorite in the Big Ten with Luka Garza coming back. Now, it'll be interesting because typically when we say a team's a clear favorite, they're not, 100th in the Ken Palm defensive efficiency rankings, which is a marked improvement compared to what we've typically seen in the Fran McCaffrey era. But the amount of firepower there, man, is legit. Now, this league is going to be legit for sure, again. But I'd rather have basketball season. And here's the thing. I think without a football season, I don't think you're going to have a basketball season. If it's not safe, once they bring the students back on campus, if it's not safe to play football, then I don't know how they bring everybody back again in the dead of winter and play basketball. To me, I think they're kind of a package deal.
Here's the thing, though. We had a spate, or maybe I was just imagining it. We had a spate of players last week announce that they are coming back for basketball season. Mm-hmm. Now, that could be two things. They didn't get March Madness to be able to show their stuff to scouts. That could be one thing. They weren't going to make it on an NBA team regardless. That could be another thing. But with so many saying they'll come back so quickly, and it almost lends itself, to me anyway, these guys have some sort of idea that they are going to be playing this year.
I hope they do, and I hope you're right. And the NCAA said it will let everybody know the state of the basketball season in September. Why hasn't it been more forthcoming in football? As we've explained before in this program, the NCAA does not control college football. It has its own college football association that is separate from all of this, but it has direct control over college basketball. So it appears it's going to have its thumb on the scale where basketball is concerned much more and earlier than it has so far with football. We'll come back, get our Twitter question and poll results, plus this week's question of the week next. This week's Twitter poll results, we asked you earlier today, do you approve or disapprove of the official 2020 Big Ten football schedule? 76.5% approve, only 23.5% disapprove. And when I looked at some of the disapproval comments, they were, hey, I wanted it to be more regional. I wanted a little more originality, but overwhelmingly there is approval for this schedule. Now, do you think it's this schedule in particular, or the fact that it's a schedule and it just feels like a little bit more normalcy? Which do you think it is, Aaron?
I think it's just the fact that it is a schedule, because the operative word to me for this scheduling, I'm glad it is there. I'm absolutely glad it is there. But for all of the, this is a possibility, this is a possibility, all of the chess that we did on shows like this, the scheduling seemed really random to me, and the order of games seemed really, really random to me. So, but I'm just glad there is a schedule out there, and I cannot remember. We retweeted it on Bigger 10 today, and I would like to give this person props for this. Just a PSA, it is okay to talk about the schedule.
Oh, yeah.
Without the... I don't know. Without the
mandatory disclaimer, that doesn't mean any of these games will be played. Yes.
Saying, well, I hope we have a football season. Well, it's probably not going to be a football season. It's okay to talk about the schedule without saying that. It's okay. Yeah. It's okay to be happy. Put on a smiling face. This is coming from a guy who has a resting face, okay? It's okay to smile.
You have a resting glitch face.
Yes, exactly.
That's what you have, yes. This week's question of the week, then you're going to love this, from Catholic Prodigy. He says, don't you know that no team that starts 4 white guys and is coached by Fran McCaffrey is the clear leader to win any conference? Least of all, the Big Ten. Aaron, your thoughts?
Fran McCaffrey.
I don't know, man. I'll tell you this. I've seen these 4 white guys. They can play. All right?
Yeah.
I mean, not all white guys look alike. I know all we white guys look alike. But this is a little bit different than the all pasty lineup of 10 years ago in Iowa City. These guys are athletic. These guys can ball.
Yeah, we don't have any legend of Little Lick on this team. Todd Licklider's son, bless his heart.
Yes.
And you know, these guys are more akin to White Magic, which is Fran McCaffrey's nickname. These guys have a little bit more in common with that than the legend of Little Lick. So I think this is a little bit different. They're not burning a hole in my screen, right. At least not a bad one.
Right, they're not redlining your projection television, you're right.
Yeah.
But this is going to be a deep league. I mean, with Coburn and Io back at Illinois, that team will be loaded for bear. They might have been the favorites in the Big Ten had Luka Garza not come back. I think you look at Wisconsin, I think is bringing their top 9
basically
scorers.
Their whole team
are back. Yeah. Michigan is waiting to see if Wake Forest transfer Chandre Brown will be healthy or be eligible right away. If he is, man, you look at their top 8 players and I'd put them up against almost anybody's top 8 players in the Big Ten. And then you look at Michigan State. Probably would have been in the top 3 or 4, but they lost Tillman. And remember, when you didn't have Tillman and Cassius Winston on the floor last year for Michigan State, they were a different team. But still, it's Tom Izzo. They've got talent there. They'll be there somewhere. Ohio State, no Caleb Wesson, but a lot of other good players back. Indiana recruits well. Don't sleep on Rutgers. They're bringing everybody back from a team that was probably going to be in the NCAA tournament last year. So this is going to be a very, very deep league again. Hopefully, though, we get a chance. Here it is. To see those games. I did it.
I got
the disclaimer in. Yes.
That's great.
All right, don't forget to follow us here on Twitter at Bigger10 to keep up to date with what we think on all things Big Ten all week long. Until the next time, I am Steve Day signing off for Aaron McIntyre right here on Bigger 10.